Over 100,000 people marched across France Saturday to protest against President Emmanuel Macron's plans to force the vaccination of health workers and require a COVID-19 vaccine certificate or negative test to gain entry to bars, restaurants, and movie theaters. Demonstrators say Macron's sweeping measures, announced this week to fight a surge in COVID infections, infringe on their freedom of choice.
Vaccinations are really about individual freedom. Everyone can choose. That's not the theme here today. The theme is about the absence of freedom that is unfortunately continuing to grow in this country. That's it. They're taking away our freedoms little by little. Vaccinated or not, we are all together.
One demonstrator in Paris was seen dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Some signs read, "No to the health passport." Macron's announcement had already prompted demonstrations earlier this week in Paris, where police had fired tear gas to disperse some protesters. Marches across the country also included Yellow Vest protesters seeking to revive the anti-government movement curbed by coronavirus lockdowns. Earlier on Saturday, the office of Prime Minister Jean Castex said France would reinforce restrictions on unvaccinated travelers from a series of countries to fight the surge of COVID infections. The average number of new infections in France has rebounded to reach nearly 11,000 per day.
Protesters clashed with police during anti-lockdown demonstrations in Sydney, Australia on Saturday. Thousands of people, mostly maskless, gathered in defiance of public health orders amidst a growing COVID-19 outbreak. The protest turned violent fairly quickly as demonstrators threw potted plants, paint and water bottles at police officers and media, while others physically assaulted police horses. New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott announced the formation of a strike force to identify and charge those involved.
What we saw today were 3,500 very selfish bullheads, people that thought that the law didn't apply to them. There is no doubt in my mind that at least one individual there today had COVID. It is statistically impossible for us not to consider that.
New South Wales, Australia's most populous state and home to the country's most populous city, Sydney, has been 4 weeks into a lockdown to contain an outbreak of the virulent Delta variant of the coronavirus.
We want freedom!
At least 57 people were arrested at Sydney's protest, with many more expected to come. Whilst in the neighbouring state Victoria, local media reported at least half a dozen were arrested in Melbourne.
Hospitals throughout the country have been recently hit with protests as some healthcare systems have begun requiring employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or risk termination of employment. More than 100 people gathered in rallies across Iowa and Michigan on Saturday to protest COVID-19 vaccine mandates, chanting slogans such as "Stop Vax Bullying," "My Body, My Choice," "The Land of the Free," and "Mandates Belong in Socialist Countries," among others. In Iowa, several Republican state lawmakers, including Representative Jeff Shipley and Senator Dennis Guth, gave speeches against required inoculation. During his speech, Shipley called vaccine mandates a crime against humanity, while Guth said Iowans would become mindless cattle if we don't stand up for freedom, the Des Moines Register reported. Bray Johnson of Informed Choice Iowa, which organized the rally, told the Register that she believes vaccinations should be discussed between a health professional and patient, rather than a condition of employment. "You can take off a mask but you can't undo a vaccine. That's a slippery slope to what comes next," Johnson said. In Michigan, protesters, including several hospital workers, gathered outside of a hospital in Grand Rapids Saturday and held signs that said, "No mandatory experimental jabs," and "COVID vaccine makers have zero liability." Both demonstrations took place following the announcement that some local and national hospital systems will begin requiring employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Earlier this month, Trinity Health, a nationwide health care system with more than 90 hospitals and care facilities, announced that all of its employees will be mandated to get the vaccine as coronavirus cases continue to rise due to the Delta variant. Trinity Health employs over 117,000 people across 22 states, including several hospitals in both Iowa and Michigan. According to a statement from the company, the health system estimated that nearly 75% of its employees had already received at least one dose of the vaccine prior to the July 8 mandate. Now, all employees must submit proof of inoculation by September 21, with some exemptions for religious or health reasons, or else face termination of employment.